Do you want to start all over? I'm not
liking
this episode.
It's not going well.
I felt like I couldn't get any of the words. Like, I want Whitney to be my mom. I don't. Like, that's not what I was trying to say. Hi, this is Caitlin.
And this is Sharon.
And welcome to Real Housewives on Real Housewives, where we unravel housewives' story threads and keep the tea flowing.
So chic.
Hold on to your carry-ons.
This is our second episode digging into the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3.
So it takes place in Phuket, Thailand, and let's just do a little quick look at the cast again in case you missed our last episode.
Okay, there's Portia from Atlanta, Marisol from Miami, Alexia from Miami, Gizelle and Candace from Potomac, Whitney and Heather from Salt Lake City, and Leah from New York City.
And then Pepsi, the concierge, she's an honorary housewife.
Yes.
So our feuds for this second episode are going to be Whitney versus Alexia and Marisol, Portia versus Leah and Candace, and Gizelle versus the Casa Azul thief. That sounds like a Nancy Drew book title or something. If you missed our last episode, we did the feuds, Heather versus Whitney and Heather versus Leah on those. So our Heather versus, go back an episode and listen to those if you want to catch those. But let's continue forward. We're going to start off with Whitney versus Alexia and Marisol. Do you want to explain kind of what went down there?
So, they were at a dinner and basically Alexia says to Whitney, you know, you're amazing, but how do you balance like your sexuality and stuff that you show on TV, like the sex and weed? How do you balance that with children? And it kind of seemed a little judgy.
The way she said it was totally judgy to me.
Yeah.
Later, she backtracks and kind of says, well, I just wanted to know, you know, I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
And I wanted clarity in that area.
She made it sound like she wanted advice.
I felt like that was
But her children are grown.
Yeah. I felt like that was a backtrack to get herself out of trouble. I felt like she was legitimately asking, like, how do you do these things on TV and have your kids be okay with it? And then later she was like, oh, I'm good with her. I should maybe try to, like, make it sound better. Because Marisol in the Talking Head says, I think that respect for your family is not being on a stripper pole on TV. And she kind of says, like, what do the kids do at school when they see that? So that made me think, and I guess I'm kind of lumping them together, Marisol and Alexia here. Maybe that's not fair. But it made me feel like it's total mom shaming.
It did seem that way.
Yeah.
And it's so odd to me because, and I like Marisol and Alexia and I love Whitney.
Yeah.
But I mean, Marisol is drinking nonstop on TV. So
kind of felt like, and you guys all went and attended the same party.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a part of me that wonders if we were extra bothered by it because like mom shaming, like we're housewives. So that's a thing we deal with kind of not on a daily basis, but often we feel like people are kind of overstepping their bounds maybe in how they look at things or what they say to us. Mm-hmm. And I think I totally related to Whitney in that moment. It's like, dude, that's not fair. I think Whitney handled it really well.
She did.
She said, my kids know what to say. They say like, you wish, you know, your mom was my mom and to just kind of walk away. And the one thing I thought Whitney said was, and because I've heard it said too by therapists and things, that the best way to have, you know, those tricky discussions with your kids about like drugs and sex and all that is to kind of wait until a natural moment comes up. I once read that, like they said, kind of like car talk, you know, you'll be with your kids and then they'll sort of ask something weird from the back seat and you'll kind of go, oh, this is maybe a good calm moment. Nobody has direct eye contact. It's not uncomfortable. Like that's a good time to discuss it with your kids. And I think Whitney's saying when these things come up, I'm really open with my kids and that's when I have the discussion. And that I felt really good. Like that made me feel good about someone explaining how they explain uncomfortable things to their kids. Like it was nice to see that example. But I don't think that Alexia was right in the way she brought it up because it was judging.
I think that was the whole reason she brought it up.
I don't think she brought it up to get advice.
I don't think she was like, man, I want to get on that stripper pole, but oh my gosh, my kid. Like, you know.
Well, it's interesting because her child struggled with pot on the show. And they have a whole discussion about that. So it felt really like pot. That sounds bad, but I was going to say pot calling the kettle black, but I mean a different kind of pot. But because it felt like, well, you've dealt with this, so how did you deal with it? And so then I was like, well, maybe she was trying to connect, but it didn't.
Maybe
match at
she
all.
thinks like, well, you don't want to show your kids that because this could happen. I wonder if maybe that's where she was coming from. The fact that
Although then she kind of said at the last lunch, she said, well, I didn't talk to my kids about it and we still had or I didn't show anything to my kids about it and we still had this problem. So maybe it doesn't matter. So again, I felt like nothing was really resolved there. They just kind of were like, and to each their own.
I think whenever your kids have an issue, which everyone has issues, you kind of go like, what role did I play in that? And maybe she's still working that out in her head with her children.
That could be. Maybe she was like, well, Whitney's role seems different than mine. I wonder if I'd taken a different path.
Yeah.
So that's possible. Do you think anybody wins in that discussion?
I think Whitney did because she handled herself so well.
I agree. She was really calm about it and was just like, this is what we do. Yeah. It's like she didn't even have to think because sometimes I'm like, oh, what is the party line? Like, what is our family party line on this? I better figure that out really fast. It's like she had the answer. She was ready. So that's good for her kids because she knows where she stands.
Well, her kids must know the stripper pole is in the basement.
I mean, you can't just tell kids that's like something else.
It's fireman pole.
Sometimes mommy has to practice for when she's one of those, what is it called? Like a volunteer firefighter.
A sexy firefighter.
Yeah, I guess, again, to each their own. Okay, let's look at Portia versus Leah and Candace. So this is kind of confusing. Like when we were both talking about it, we were sort of like, I don't totally understand. Like it feels like there's a history there that we couldn't quite figure out. So the main issue is that, I mean, it comes to a head when Portia doesn't tag Leah and Candace in a group picture. Like that's one of the big parts. And also Portia thinks that Leah is rude and disrespectful because Leah acts kind of like she doesn't want to be there. And she is. There's a lot of complaining coming from Leah. And I know she doesn't feel good. And I know, she does end up in the hospital. So I think earlier when she's complaining and we're thinking she's whiny, there probably is a lot more to it there than we realized. So looking back on that, I kind of feel bad that for the first few episodes, I was like, gosh, Leah, stop whining about everything. So it's like, it's maybe not that she didn't want to be there, but she didn't feel good. And when you don't feel good, you don't want to be somewhere.
Yeah.
But then Portia doesn't like Candace either. And I'm not quite sure where that comes from.
I thought, oh, they must have a history I'm unaware of, is what I was thinking. Because I don't understand that.
Yeah. What's weird is I feel like this kind of comes before the later thing that happens. But there's an issue with Portia and Candace, and Portia does like the Bravo, I don't know if it's Bravo based, but she does a chat room on Bravo shows. And I guess what she's mostly mad with Portia about that comes out is that Portia didn't have her back. There was a fight between she and another woman on Potomac. And Portia used the explanation that the other lady sent out, whereas Candace honored her Bravo contract and didn't talk about it. So she didn't have a response. But I'm not 100% sure that that's Portia's fault. Like she was given information and then she wasn't given information. And she probably assumed that Candace still had the show platform to be able to discuss it. And then Gizelle went to bat for Candace and Candace gave no credit to that either. So again, I feel like I still don't understand where it comes from. It's something in those lines.
Yeah.
But they're a miss for each other. Like I think they're just maybe not even on the same wavelength.
Do you think if Leah had felt better,
they would be
more on the same? Do you think they still wouldn't be like, there'd still be oil and water?
I bet they'd still be oil and water. But I think she wouldn't have been able to latch onto Leah's disrespect as the reason. There might have been a more legitimate reason for it.
Yeah, because one of the big things was at that dinner where Alexia's telling her story and
I hated that moment.
Leah pretty much says, I'm bored. I think she literally says, I'm bored or something.
Stop stealing Ramona's thing. She pretty much is like, I already heard the story in the Sprinter van. And the other women hadn't heard the story in the Sprinter van.
Yeah.
I'm getting deja vu about this moment from Ultimate Girls Trip 1. But she just doesn't want to hear Alexia's story. And it's like a little kid. I'm bored. I don't want to hear
it. That's perfect comparison. But okay, so what do you think about Portia not tagging Leah and Candace in the
I think
photo?
that was absolutely on purpose. And I think she says as much. I think she should have just tagged them for peace. I think it was like a passive-aggressive /aggressive moment to do that. because I think she knew they'd notice and she knew there'd be a problem. And it was like kind of her way of like calling Candace out without calling Candace out.
Yeah.
Because I also think like Portia never would have liked Leah because Leah and Candace were friends.
Yeah.
And there was clearly that issue with Candace. They're both really strong personalities too. So I'm just thinking like maybe they wouldn't have gotten along. Though I feel like there's an alternate like history of Housewives or something where I feel like maybe Portia and Candace could be on the same team. I just think the conditions would have to be different.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. So,
who do you think wins in that?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
That was super
hoping
weird.
You knew the answer.
I kind of think Portia came out because here's the thing.
So.
I really like Leah, but she just did not come off looking good.
She came off whiny this season. And Candace came off a little whiny too, sadly.
And even though I actually like them the best, I think, they just came off bad.
No, I agree. I think Portia won because she just stayed in control of it better. It was kind of hilarious when she was screaming at Candace and like her daughter's name is PJ, or that's her nickname. And she kept going like, oh, PJ's here, PJ's here. Like when Candace was like totally acting like a baby about it. She's like, get PJ some Pedialyte. Like get her Pedialyte. I was like, okay. I mean, it was aggressive, but it was funny. Later they say, like Portia says like, Leah, I don't hate you. But then they have that bye moment where she's like, Leah, bye, Portia, bye. Which also felt like toddler. It's like, none of their fights made a lot of sense. And then their resolutions also didn't make a lot of sense. So I just feel like there's a whole messy cloud around
it was muddled.
It was very muddled. The one that's not muddled, but also is very childish, is Gizelle versus the Casa Azul thief. So Gizelle only likes to drink one thing, and that's Casa Azul tequila. And it was like in this very pretty blue and white pottery bottle. And she doesn't drink wine and she doesn't drink vodka. And people had to go to like great lengths to find it to her. And I wondered if it was like more getting it into the country was the great length. Do you think? Like,
this was unclear to me if you couldn't
bring certain things into certain countries. Maybe that was the issue.
Yeah, maybe they must not have been able to import it, or it wasn't sold.
Yeah, or it was
Thailand.
sold really far away or something. I don't know. They made it seem like it was this huge complex.
Well, actually, she must have brought it in because she couldn't get another one there.
That's right. So Gizelle thinks that one of the ladies took it, and she's like really focused on Candace as the culprit. So some discussion about that between all the ladies, like who did it, who took it. And really, Gizelle is the instigator of the whole thing. She basically says who she thinks is guilty. Like she acts like she's just in charge of the whole. It's kind of a witch hunt.
It is a witch hunt.
When you were watching it, did you think anybody stole it?
I had no idea. I thought they were just going to find it somewhere. I thought maybe someone threw it away accidentally. And I thought for sure Gizelle, I thought she really wanted to know where it was, but this was all kind of like her goofing around too. But then I was like, I think she's being serious, which was really bizarre.
It was bizarre. That's the exact word.
I must say, when she held court at her event, that was hysterical.
Did you think that followed the process of investigation well?
From all my true crime experience,
how would you rate that?
I did see some things that a lawyer could come back with an appeal.
I do think so. I think there's quite a few. So the other thing I didn't completely understand was, I think again, Candace was just digging her feet in because she was mad about things that had happened last season on Potomac with Gizelle. And we don't have to go too much into that, but there was an issue with Candace's husband. So I think that's why it's like everyone else is like, you can search my room.
But here's the thing. I think this is kind of like a lot of people have this feeling. I do. You cannot search my room because you can't search my room. Not because I have anything in there. I would have been the same as Candace.
I think I would have been a pushover once everyone else said they would do it.
Versus there's the type of people who are like, well, I have nothing to hide.
Yeah, exactly. And so it made her look guilty, but it's not fair because you're right. She has the right to say you don't get to search my room or because I'm hiding the casas.
You need a warrant.
So if you had to say that one person stole it, who do you think?
I am still so confused because at the end when Whitney and Heather go, I was like, so I kind of think maybe one person took it and then they all knew about it. And so they were all kind of conspiring to keep it from her.
Yeah, I almost wondered if it wasn't passed around from like person to person to person to person, kind of like just to kind of be annoying. But I didn't understand at the end. I felt like all of that was joking. Like I felt like maybe in the scene where was it Leah and Candace, that they had just like stolen the new bottle and they were being silly about it.
Oh, okay.
And then I felt like maybe also Heather and Whitney were being silly. I felt like all of that was staged to be funny. Like to just give us opportunities, but it wasn't. It was kind of like Heather's black eye again.
Yeah.
What was funny, so there were those little Roku extended scenes, and Candace in her extended scene called her husband, and like he'd totally been asleep. There was the time difference. And she's like she's trying to explain the detail of it. And that's when I also realized like this doesn't make any sense. Because as she's explaining it to Chris, it's like she's having trouble explaining it. Like I'm being blamed for this bottle. And Chris was like really like half awake. And he's like, did you just wake me up because Gizelle can't find tequila? I was kind of like, yeah, that's what the whole fight boils down to. Yeah, that's pretty much all of it. Like the only thing I have to give to that fight is that it tied everything together, because when Pepsi arrives at the end and they're all in the Thai garb and it's so beautiful and they're doing that ceremony and he arrives like holding the new bottle he located of Casa Azul. Yeah. It's like, and was it the new bottle or was it the original bottle? Like I wanted someone to confirm whether any had been, like if anyone drank out of the bottle. Like was it a new bottle or was it the old bottle come back? That's the real
it's the real mystery.
Poor
Only
Pepsi
knows.
Yeah. Well, I felt bad because he got all mad because they were fighting about it.
I know.
And he was just like, I don't like the yelling and I do things for you that come from my heart.
Yeah.
And then it made it seem even more like
petty.
A silly petty. That's the right word.
Yeah.
It was very petty LaBelle. And then she was like, Pepsi's not built for this. We need a Coke or a Sprite. And it's true. A Diet Coke would be stronger, in that scenario. So who wins in that?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, we still can't figure out who did it. The worst crime.
I laughed at the end when Heather's like, oh, they didn't check blah, 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 the shower. So I think Heather wins because she made me laugh.
I know. I feel like the comedic moments of it, I guess, win because there's a part of me that hated it. But now I think if you pulled that out, the rest of the show wouldn't make sense. So I guess the Casa Azul bottle wins for me.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know which one, the one that got lost or the one that came back, or if they're the same bottle. It's all very confusing.
That's like when your kid loses or breaks their favorite toy and you have to have a spare in case. Exactly. Otherwise they'll never sleep again.
That's right. You're like, oh, it's the same one. It's just it got cleaned. It has this weird tag on it. Price tag I'll take off. Okay. Well, I guess that's our drama for Ultimate Girls Trip 3. Thank you for joining us on what's a mental trip and a physical trip. So remember, Housewives bring the drama,
but we bring the receipts.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to help support us, please share it with others and leave a rating and review. Also, visit us on Instagram and Twitter, both at RH_on_RH for fun pictures and polls, or email us at rhonrhpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and remember to stay out of the shade.